Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutiriye Nashtiprayesha Bhadresha Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtike. So continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Satsvarup Das Goswami, Volume 2, Planting the Seed, New York City, 1965-1966, Chapter 20th, Stay High Forever. So Prabhupada had wonderful kirtan at Tompkins Square Park and his lectures at 26th Second Avenue going on. And he is getting more and more people coming to his lectures. Ravindra Sarup was walking down Second Avenue on his way to the Swami's morning class when an acquaintance came out of James's Spark Candy, a news store, and said, "Hey, your Swami is in the newspaper. Did you see?" "Yeah," Ravindra Sarup replied. "The New York Times." "No," his friend said, "today." And he held up a copy of the latest edition of the East Village Other. The front page was filled with a two-color photo of the Swami, his hands folded decorously at his waist, standing in yellow robes in front of the big tree in Tompkins Square Park. He was speaking to a small crowd that had gathered around, and his disciples were at his feet. The big steeple of St. Brigid's formed a silhouette behind him. Above the photo was a single headline, "Save Earth Now," and beneath was the mantra, "Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare." Below the mantra were the words, "See centerfold." That was the whole front page. Ravindra Swarup took the newspaper and opened to the center, where he found a long article and a large photo of Swamiji with his left hand on his head, grinning blissfully in an unusual casual movement. His friend gave him the paper and Ravindra Swarup hurried to Swamiji. When he reached the storefront, several boys went along with him to show Swamiji the paper. "Look," Ravindra Swarup handed it over. "This is the biggest local newspaper. Everybody reads it." Prabhupada opened his eyes wide. He read aloud, "Save Earth Now," and he looked up at the faces of the boys. Umapati and Haigreve wondered aloud what it meant. Save Earth Now. Was it an ecological pun? Was it a reference to staving off nuclear disaster? Was it a poking fun at Swamiji's evangelism? "Well," said Umapati, "after all, this is East Village Other. It could mean anything. Swamiji is saving the earth," Kirtanand said. "We are trying to," Prabhupada replied, "by Krishna's grace." Methodically, he put on the eyeglasses he usually reserved for reading the Bhagavatam and carefully appraised the page from top to bottom. The newspaper looked incongruous in his hands. Then he began turning the pages. He stopped at the centerfold and looked at the picture of himself in that, then paused, studying the article. "So," he said, read it. He handed the paper to Haigreve. "Once upon a time," Haigreve began loudly, "it was a fanciful story of a group of theologians who had killed an old man in a church, and some of the subsequent press report that God was now dead. But the story went on. Some people didn't believe it. They had dug up the body and found it to be not the body of God, but that of his PR man. Organized religion. At once the good tidings swept across the wide world. God lives, but where was God?" Haigreve read dramatically to an enthralled group. So this is how the article was printed. A full-page ad in the New York Times offering a reward for information leading to the discovery of the whereabouts of God, and signed by Martin Luther King and Ronald Reagan, brought no response. People began to worry and wonder again. God, said some people, lives in a sugar cube. Others whispered that the sacred secret was in a cigarette. But while all this was going on, an old man, 1 year past his allotted 70, wandered into New York's East Village and set about to prove to the world that he knew where God could be found. In only 3 months, the man, Swami A.C. Bhaktivedanta, succeeded in convincing the world's toughest audience, bohemians, acid heads, pot heads, and hippies, that he knew the way to God. Turn off, sing out, and fall in. This new brand of holy man, with all due deference to Dr. Leary, has come forth with a brand of consciousness expansion that is sweeter than acid, cheaper than pot, and non-bustible by fuss. How is all this possible? Through Krishna, the Swami says. The boys broke into cheers and applause. Achyutananda apologized to Swamiji for the language of the article. It's a hippie newspaper. That's all right, said Prabhupada. He has written it in his own way. But he has said that we are giving God. They are saying that God is dead, but it is false. We are directly presenting, here is God. Who can deny it? So many theologians and people may say there is no God, but the Vaishnavas hands God over to you freely as a commodity. Here is God. So he has marked this. It's very good. Save this paper. It's very important. See, this is one thing that I find in America. They're very open-minded. Like later on, we'll study when Shyam Sundar Prabhu made the first deity of Jagannath Baldev Subhadra. And now Jagannath Ji, we know he's God, but for hippies or Americans, they look at him as what? No hands, no legs, big belly, big eyes, black color, Balramji white color, Subhadra yellow color. And this is what happened when Shyam Sundar Prabhu made first deity of Lord Jagannath. And somebody walked in. Oh, who is he? Oh, some devotee explained that Jagannath, he's God. Who's the white one? Oh, he's God's brother. Who's the one in the middle, yellow? Oh, he's God's sister. He said, yeah, they look alike. They must be related. And he walked away. No comments. Why is God and why is no Shiva is God. They don't know anything. They just accept it. And actually, when I was moving back to India from America, winding up everything here, I had the deities of Panch Tattva with me that time. So, and they were very heavy deities I had in my backpack. So going through, now I had to go through airport security. Not in backpack, but carry on, because they were very, very heavy. I could not carry them in the back. Now, they carry on means they had to go through that check-in, security. So they saw in the security X-ray, obviously 5 brass deities are there, and they said we have to open and check. And they asked me, what do you have in the bag? I said, I have God in the bag. Now, what to tell them? And you should have seen the security officers, about 10 of them. They're not afraid or saying, they were saying, okay, let's see what God looks like. And they were open to see. So I said, okay, let me show you. And they allowed me. Generally, they don't allow you to touch the bag if they're checking, but they allowed me. So, okay. So I opened, first came out Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I said, he's God. Then Nityananda Prabhu, I put them all standing for Panch Tattva there and the security belt, and explained little bit whatever I could. And then they said, okay, yeah, you pack them in, it's okay. You're free to go. But they were open-minded. It's not like, oh, you're crazy fanatic and this and that. They didn't say anything. They were open-minded. Yeah, this is God. Okay, fine. Your tradition or your dharma says that, that's fine. But this was very helpful for Prabhupada to start his preaching, to establish the society. And now he's getting newspapers to write articles. The article was long. For the cynical New Yorker, it said, living, visible, tangible proof can be found at 26 2nd Avenue, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday between 7 and 9. The article described the evening kirtans quoted from Prabhupada's lecture and mentioned a rhythmic, hypnotic 16-word chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, sung for hours on end to the accompaniment of hand clapping, cymbals, and bells. Swamiji said simply because the mantra was there, the article was perfect. Because from his perspective, anybody who would read this mantra, read the article and read the mantra, he'll get benefit. The article also included testimony from the Swami's disciples. I started chanting to myself, like the Swami said when I was walking down the street, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Over and over, and suddenly everything starting looking so beautiful. The kids, the old men and women, even the creeps looked beautiful. To say nothing of the trees and flowers. It was like I had taken a dozen doses of LSD. But I knew there was a difference. There is no coming down from this. I can always do this anytime, anywhere. It's always with you. Without sarcasm, the article referred to Swami's discipline, forbidding coffee, tea, meat, eggs, and cigarettes, to say nothing of marijuana, LSD, alcohol, and illicit sex. Obviously, the author admired Swamiji, and the energetic old man, a leading exponent of the philosophy of personalism, which holds that the one God is a person, but that his form is spiritual. The article ended with a hint that Tompkins Square Park will see similar spiritual happenings each weekend. There, in the shadow of Hubbings Hill, God lives in a trance-like dance and chant. This is how they wanted to present, but it was a wonderful article to come in this paper. October 12th. It was to be a love pageant rally marking California's new law prohibiting the possession of LSD. The rally's promoters urged everyone to come to Tompkins Square Park in elaborate dress. Although the devotees had nothing to do with LSD laws, they took the rally as another opportunity to popularize the chanting of Hare Krishna. So they went with the Swami's blessings, carrying finger cymbals and homemade tambourine. The devotees looked plain in their dark jeans and lightweight zippered jackets. All around them, the dress was extravagant, tie-dyed shirts, bleached jeans, period costumes, painted faces. There was even a circus clown. Thule Kupferberg of the Fugs rock band carried an American flag with the stars rearranged to spell love. But so far the rally had been a dud, just a strange set of drugged young people milling near the large tree where Swamiji had chanted and spoken just a few days before. Swamiji's boys made their way through the crowd to a central spot and started chanting Hare Krishna. A crowd pressed in close around them. Everyone seemed to be in friendly spirits, just unorganized, without any purpose. The idea behind the rally had been to show love and pageant of LSD vision, but not much had been happening. Someone was walking around with a bucket of burning incense. Some hippies sat back on the park benches, watching everything through colored glasses. But the kirtan was attractive, and soon a crowd gathered around the boys as he chanted. Kirtanand, his shaved head covered with a knit skull cap, stood beside tall Jagannath, who, with his dark framed glasses and wavy hair, looked like a great horned owl playing hand cymbals. Umapati also played hand cymbals, looked thoughtful. Brahmananda sat on the ground in front of them, his eyes closed and his mouth widely open, chanting Hare Krishna. Beside him and looking moody sat Raphael, and next to him, ascetically thin-faced Ravindra Swarup. Close by, policemen stood watching. The hippies began to pick up the chanting. They had come together, but there had been no center, no lecture, no amplified music. But now they began clapping and swaying, getting into the chanting as if it were their single purpose. The chanting grew stronger, and after an hour, the group broke into spontaneous dance, joining hands and singing out, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. They skipped and danced together, circling the tree and Swamiji's disciples. To the hippies, it was in fact a love pageant rally, and they had found the love and peace they were searching for. It was in this mantra. Hare Krishna had become their anthem, the reason for coming together, the life of the love pageant rally. They didn't know exactly what the mantra was, but they accepted it as something deep within the soul, a metaphysical vibration. They tuned into it. Even the clown began chanting and dancing. Only the policeman remained aloof and sober, though he also could see that the new demonstration would be a peaceful one. The dance continued, and only the impending dusk brought the love pageant rally to a close. The devotees hurried back to Swamiji to tell him all that had happened. He had been sitting at his desk, translating the Srimad Bhagavatam. Although he had not been physically present at Kirtan, his disciples had acted on his instructions. So even without leaving the room, he was spreading the chanting of Hare Krishna. Now he sat, waiting for the report. They burst into his room with shining eyes, flushed faces, and hoarse voices, relating the good news. Not only had they dutifully chanted, but hundreds of people had joined them and sung and danced in a big circle in a spirit of unity. Swamiji, you should have seen, Brahmananda exclaimed, his voice now exhausted from chanting. It was fantastic, fantastic. Prabhupada looked from one face to another. And he also became like them, elated and hopeful that the chanting could go on like this. They had proved that the chanting of Hare Krishna could lead the love and peace movement. It could grow and hundreds could take part. It's up to you to spread this chanting, Swamiji told them. I'm an old man, but you are young and you can do it. October 13, the village voice ran 4 large photographs of the love pageant rally. The article stated, the backbone of the celebration was the mantras, holy chants from the Sanskrit Bhagavad Gita, and for 3 hours it became like a boat on a sea of rhythmic chanting. Led by 15 disciples of Bhaktivedanta Swami, who operates from his storefront on 2nd Avenue, the mantras ebbed and flowed into the rhythm of drums, flutes, and soda cab tambourines. October 18. It was Sunday, and again they went to Tompkins Square Park. Swamiji played the bongo as before, striking the drumhead deftly as ever, his nimble fingers creating drum rolls as he sat on the rug in the autumn afternoon. His authentic, melodic voice recited the prayers to the previous spiritual masters, Bhaktivinoda, Gaur-Kishore, Bhakti Siddhanta, centuries-old disciplic succession of which he was a living representative, now in the 1960s, in this remote part of the world. He sang their names in duty, deference, and love as a servant. He sat surrounded by his American followers under the tall oak tree amid the maze-like fences of the park. And the same magic occurred. This time the hippies came by with more ease and familiarity. Allen Ginsberg came again, and 100 others gathered as Prabhupada loudly sang, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Of the hundreds who came by, some stayed briefly and then left. Some decided to listen and chant for a few minutes or even for the entire afternoon. And a few, very few, marked their encounter with the Swami as an unforgettable change in their lives. Bob Correns was looking for the Swami. He was walking with his stylishly dressed wife and 2-year-old son, Eric. Bob was 26 years old and worked as a supervisor in the New York City Welfare Department. He had grown up in Washington, D.C., where he had met his wife. He had a full face and broad forehead and a clear voice and steady eyes. Bob. After I graduated from George Washington University, I decided to go straight to what I thought was the heart of the material world, New York City, to seek out whatever was the highest truth. I ended up living around the corner from First East Village head shop. Bob didn't think his job as a social worker really helped anyone. His clients over the years seemed to maintain the same outlook and habits. He and his wife frequented West Village coffee houses, had attended lectures by Leary and Albert on expanded consciousness, and had taken part in a recent peace march. Bob had come to feel that his aspirations for a master's degree and a better apartment were unfulfilling, and he was looking for something. Bob, I heard about the I Ching, a book that was supposed to chart a person's course in life. So I got someone to do a reading for. The direction was push upward through darkness. I took it as a good sign, a spiritual sign. Then I purchased the East Village Other and saw the article entitled Save Earth Now. There was a picture of the Swami. I had read in a book by a Sikh teacher that there could be no higher knowledge without a spiritual master. Every morning on his way to work, Bob used to pass by the Swami's storefront. Curious, he stopped once and peered in the window, only to find an empty room with some straw mats on the floor and one of the Swamiji's boys. Oh, these people are Buddhists, he thought. The door had been open and the boy came over and invited him in. No thanks, he said, thinking, I don't want anything to do with the Buddhism. And he went on to his job. In a head shop one day, he had picked up one of Swamiji's Bhagavatams and looked through it, but he thought it was too advanced. So he put it back down. After he read the article in the East Village Other, his interest increased. He thought that today might be the last Sunday of chanting in the park before the cold weather came. And so he went to the park, hoping to find the Swami and his chanters. His wife was beside him, pushing Eric in his stroller. And when he heard the ching-ching of the sand cymbals and a chorus of rhythmic chanting from the south side of the park, thinking it must be the song, he followed the sound, while his wife took Eric to play on the strings. Alone now, Bob drew closer, moving into the crowd until he could see the Kirtan party and the Swami sitting under the tree. Bob stood among a crowd of hundreds, unnoticed. Everything is happening because of me, thought 19-year-old Judy Koslovsky. Everything I see is my own creation, and I am the supreme. Everything is mine. As the thought of being God obsessed her, Judy forgot her father and everything else. She was confused. If I am God, why can't I control everything, and why am I so fearful on LSD? People don't think like that. Judy was a student at the City College of New York, majoring in art and history. She was taking guitar lessons from the Reverend Gary Davis, the blues singer and Christian preacher who was teaching her the art of sad soul music. Today, however, under the influence of LSD, she had the overwhelming impression that she was God. She had had to fight with a father who seemed cold and distant to her and couldn't understand her. And she had left her parents' home in the Bronx and traveled downtown. She was going to visit a girlfriend, and Tompkins Square Park happened to be on the way. When she reached the park, the kirtan was going on, but she couldn't see much because of the crowd. She weaved her way in closer until she could see some men, one shaven-headed, several bearded, dancing with upraised hands. And in the center, she saw the Swami sitting on the rug, playing his drum. So similarly, others, Dan Clark was 25, thin, intense, horn-rimmed, bespectacled, and avant-garde filmmaker, and his first film was entitled Rebirth. He was a conscientious objector to the Vietnam War and was working at home for children as alternative governmental service. He had been a member of the SDS and the War Resisters League. He had been arrested during a protest demonstration, and he had been suspended 1 week from job for wearing a peace button and a black armband. He was into Buddhism, but he had lately been adding a little psychedelic seasoning, taking some drugs on the side. Everything is nothing and nothing is everything was his slogan, and he would go around chanting it like a mantra. But he was feeling that, at least psychologically, he needed a devotional tonic. His Voidistic meditation was getting stale. Dan had come to the park today looking for the Swami and the chanting he had read about in the East Village other. He had seen the Swami before, one evening a few months back. He had been waiting for a bus across the street from Swami's storefront. He was on the way to a rehearsal for a mixed media show, and his friend had gone into Sam's luncheonette for a moment when he noticed that in the storefront an orange-robed Indian man with a shaved head was lecturing to a small group of young people. Dan, when I saw him, I imagined myself walking across the street, going into the storefront, sitting down and renouncing all worldly connections. But I thought to myself, it's only my imagination. After all, I'm married, I'm on my way to rehearsal, and I don't know anything about the Swami anyway. So my friend and I got on the bus. But Dan lived only a few blocks away from the storefront, and now and then he would pass by. Once he had stood for several minutes on the sidewalk, looking at the cover of the Srimad Bhagavatam taped onto the window. Then it showed an oval lotus with planets around it, and right then I was introduced to the idea of spiritual sensuality. And when I saw the painting of Lord Chaitanya and his associates in the window, that really threw me. I thought, yes, this is what I need, juice. Dan and his wife walked the paved pathway through the park. He was looking around for the Swami, but he didn't really know what to look for. He expected to see robes and hear Buddhist-style chanting, but he couldn't find anything. He had given up his search and was wandering around to see what musicians were there when he noticed a big crowd gathered around what he figured must have been some musicians. He was attracted by the beat of their music, a chiming 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, a simple rhythm with a kind of flamboyance and very magnetic. He saw an occasional upraised arm above the crowd, and he thought there must be flamenco dancing going on inside the circle. He then got wind of a drifting melody, certainly not flamenco, but which accompanied the beat, and this attracted him further. He approached closer and closer, making his way through the crowd. Then he saw people chanting and others dancing and waving their arms in what he took to be a blend of American Indian and Asian dancing. It looked like something from a long forgotten era. Dan decided that this must be the Hare Krishna group, but there were no robes, just a regular dress on the Lower East Side. And where was the Swami? Then he saw him sitting, inconspicuous, playing a little drum. His eyes were closed and his brow was knit with concentration. The Swami wasn't calling attention to himself, and at first I didn't attribute any importance to an elderly Indian man sitting off to one side. He didn't seem to have any special function in the chant, but it gradually dawned on me who he was. He was the same Swami I had read about in the paper and seen in the storefront. After a while he spoke, but I couldn't hear him. Still, I was impressed that he was a very modest person, not interested in getting himself up on a pedestal. He didn't go strutting around, but it was still with inner peace, strength, and knowledge. So, different people's experiences and their realizations of that time. So, I guess we can stop here and continue with this tomorrow. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, you all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.